Hello my friends, it is Amy Esther here, and today's video we are going to talk about what to do when someone you love has suffered a miscarriage. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I make videos a couple times a week about my life as a mother with chronic illness. I have several chronic illnesses, including PCOS and endometriosis, which cause infertility, and I've had 3 miscarriages now. I do have one rainbow baby who has been the best, but I also had another miscarriage this week. And so I wanted to make a few videos to just share some of the things that I've learned through my miscarriage journeys. I cannot make this into a good thing. It's not a good thing. It is a terrible, horrible thing that happens to so many of us out there. But the only thing I can do is to try to find some good and to share it with you. And that is just to hopefully help anyone out there who is struggling or knows someone who is struggling with a miscarriage. If you yourself has had a miscarriage before, would you please comment below some more tips that I may have not mentioned that have helped you with your miscarriage that maybe someone's done or maybe you wish they would have done, just so that me and everyone watching this can have even more advice about what to do when you know someone who has suffered a miscarriage. So let's first start with what not to do. So these are some things that a lot of people have said to me and they were not very helpful to me, and if you have said this to me, do not feel bad. I know that you were just trying to help and be nice. So I hope I don't offend anyone that has said this to me. I know what your intentions were, but they just are not very helpful in my opinion. Of course, this whole video is just one person's opinion, so take it all with a grain of salt. But these are the things that I do not think are very helpful to tell someone when they have suffered a miscarriage. So the first thing I would avoid saying is, oh, miscarriages are so common. I know this person and this person and this person and this person has had a miscarriage. Miscarriages happen in, doctors say, about 20% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. And that is not helpful, honestly. Like, it seems like it would. It seems like it would be helpful to know that other people are going through this, but it does help to talk to people who have gone through it, but it doesn't help to just know that there's other people out there who have felt this pain, because you are just sad. Just because something is common does not mean it is easy, does not mean that it is something that's easy to go through. If you yourself have never been through a miscarriage and someone you know is miscarrying, I would not suggest saying, oh, I know all these people who have miscarried. I would suggest saying, hey, my friend so-and-so miscarried. Would you like me to give you her number? Would you like to talk to her? Because I do think it is helpful to talk to someone who has gone through a miscarriage. So in that case, I would give them a specific example, a specific person to talk to that you think they could connect with and talk to. And if they say no, don't be offended. Just move on with some of my later tips. They might not want to talk to anyone, and that is totally okay as well. The next thing that you should not say to someone who has suffered a miscarriage is, at least you know you can get pregnant. Now, I have actually had so many people send that to me. Almost every person who has talked to me since I have had this last miscarriage has said something along these lines of, well, at least you know you can get pregnant. And this is not helpful for a couple reasons. The first reason is this person could be suffering from infertility. Now, I have PCOS and endometriosis, and so I suffer from infertility, and I actually got pregnant this time, my first cycle after having a baby, which from what I've heard from doctors and people around is that it is a lot more likely to get pregnant after your hormones have gone under a big change, like, you know, getting off nursing, after a pregnancy, after a miscarriage, after getting off birth control, things like that. And so I kind of had a boost of fertility, and I believe that is why I got pregnant this time. And I actually went to the doctor, and he informed me that I will most likely need fertility treatments to get pregnant again, which is not an easy thing. I know it sounds like, oh, just take this drug and you'll get pregnant, and that sounds great. I did that with my first. That's how I got pregnant with my first. But it is not very fun. It's a lot on your body. And I'm going to not go into that in this video. We can talk about another video. But fertility treatments are not fun. So I would suggest not saying anything like, at least you know you can get pregnant, because maybe it was just they happened to get pregnant that month and they are struggling with infertility and they might have a long road ahead of them. Just because you got pregnant once does not mean that you're going to get pregnant again. Even if that person is not struggling with infertility, even if they're the most fertile person in the world, still do not say this statement of at least you can get pregnant to this person. This is because they just lost a human. They just lost their precious baby. It may seem like it is just a negative pregnancy test, but please do not treat it like it is. It is their human, their child, their baby, and especially the mothers, you just have a connection with that baby from the very beginning. My last miscarriage was only 4.5 weeks along. So I only had that baby inside me for about a week and a half. And I still felt a connection to that baby, and I still felt the loss of that human being. Not just the pregnancy loss, but the baby that I lost. So do not say at least you could get pregnant, because it's just not helpful in so many situations, whether they struggle with infertility or not. It just does not help. Another thing not to say to someone who has had a miscarriage is talking about how hard it is to have a baby, whether it's their first or second or whatever. If it's their first baby, talking about, oh, at least you don't have to go through all of that newborn stage and all the hard things about having a baby. And at least you're not going to be nauseous anymore from the pregnancy. And at least if you have 2 babies, at least it's going to be a lot less work because you only have 1 child. And people think they are being helpful and trying to be positive about the situation, but it just really hurts to hear things like that when you have really wanted this child. Whether it's your first baby or your 10th baby, it's really hurtful to hear things like that. Another one, and this only goes for people who have had a child before, maybe it's their second or third or fourth, but to say something along the lines of, well, at least you have your other child. At least you should be grateful for your other children you have. And here's the thing, like, I am so grateful for my daughter Aurelia. I love her so much. But that doesn't mean that I don't want more children, and I don't think it's selfish to want more children. I can love my daughter with all my heart and also be so sad that I lost another baby. So I would not mention the other children at all. It's just not very helpful. It sounds like it would be helpful, like, oh, you should be grateful for what you have, but it's just really not, especially in that situation. Of course, this person is going to feel gratitude for the children they have, and that's why they wanted another baby, is because they love the children they have. So just don't even mention their other children. So here's what I suggest you say to this person. Instead of saying all those things that you think are probably going to be helpful and they really just aren't, I would say 3 things. I love you, I will pray for you, and here's what I'm going to do for you. There's really nothing you can say that can turn this into a good situation. You cannot make this person happy. You cannot change their perspective on this pregnancy, and especially if you've never been through it, it's hard to know what it feels like. So just telling them that you love them and you pray for them, those are the 2 big things that you can do. And the reason that I say, here's what I will do for you, is because often people will say, hey, I'm so sorry you went through this. Please let me know if there's anything I can do. And it's hard as a person who's struggling with whatever it is, whether it's a miscarriage or anything else. If you're struggling with something and someone just says, oh, if you let me know, then I'll do something for you. Like, yes, they are being genuine and they are wanting to help. And I'm sure that if you called them, that they would jump to help you, but it is really hard to ask for help. And if you've ever been in the situation where you've needed to ask for help, you'll know that it is really hard. So instead of saying, is there anything I can do for you? Please just say, hey, I would love to make you dinner. What day works best? Or I would love to bring you a plate of cookies. What's your favorite kind? So tell them specific. I had my neighbor, my sweet neighbor, found out that we had miscarried, and she just said, hey, I am bringing you dinner. Does tonight work, or would another night be better? And then she said, do you like soup? If not, then I will totally make something else. But basically, she was just so specific. She just said, hey, can I make you this thing? Can I bring it tonight? And I just think it's so important to be specific, because it's really hard to ask for things. So maybe you're not best friends with this person. Maybe it is a neighbor and you don't feel comfortable comfortable, making them a whole dinner or whatever, you can always just write them a note. Just send them a few chocolates. Just say, hey, I'm thinking of you, anything like that. If it's someone you know better, if it's a really close friend or relative, I would suggest doing something big, maybe saying, hey, can we go out and get massages or pedicures? Would you like to go out for lunch and we can talk? And just ask specific things, because it's much easier to say yes when someone says, hey, would you like to go out to lunch tomorrow? Rather than when someone says, hey, call me if you need anything. It is so much easier to say yes. And usually that person needs help. Usually they need a friend. It is just so helpful to be specific so that person can know that you really mean it, that you really want to help them, and that it's easier for them to say yes. So my next tip, I think, is probably the most important, and that is to check in frequently. I have noticed that when something bad happens to someone, we often, at the very beginning, we all pitch in, we all, bring them dinner, we all talk to them for that first week while they're suffering, and then we move on with our lives. And they keep suffering, or maybe they get better and then they get worse. Usually that person is still struggling long after it actually happens. Even though right after the miscarriage is probably when they're in the most pain, they're still going to have pain. They're still going to have bad days coming up, but you are going to move on with your life. So I would suggest checking in frequently. It doesn't have to be bringing them dinner every month, but it could be just sending them a text maybe once a month or every couple of months. So just call them and say, hey, can we meet up again? Would you like to talk? Could I bring you anything? How are you doing? How are you doing since the miscarriage? And I'd also suggest not beating around the bush. I think sometimes people don't want to say the word miscarriage. I've just noticed that we're often scared to say the word miscarriage. We're scared to say the word loss, and we'll just kind of beat around the bush and just say, hey, are you still doing okay? Rather than saying like, are you still hurting from the miscarriage? But honestly, I think it helps to say the word and to let them know that you're talking about this specific thing, because sometimes we're so vague. We're just like, hey, how are you doing? I hope you're still doing well. But they don't know that we're talking about how are you doing from your miscarriage? And so I think it helps to really be specific. Don't beat around the bush. Just talk to them about the situation and use the real words. It's okay. I promise that it won't kill them to hear those words. And honestly, I think it helps. It makes me feel better knowing what that person is talking about and not feeling like I'm pretty sure they're talking about when I miscarried, but maybe they're just checking in on general life. So just be specific. Don't be afraid to use the actual words. And something just to remember is that you might say everything right. You might do everything that I have said to do, and this person still thinks it's the wrong thing to say. And it's kind of hard, because when someone is in that vulnerable state and they are so heartbroken, it does sometimes feel like people always say the wrong things. Does that ring true to anyone else? It just feels like people they cannot say the right thing. And no matter what they say, it hurts you and it makes you feel sad all over again. So just know that sometimes you might do everything right and this person might not want your help. They might seem offended by something that you said. But as long as you're doing it with love, as long as whatever you are doing for this person who is suffering and you are doing it with love, I think you have done the right thing. And just remember that these are just my thoughts. They are not doctrine. You can just take all of this with a grain of salt. Maybe you want to do the exact opposite of what I'm telling you to do. These are just some tips and tricks from someone who has suffered a miscarriage. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, give it a thumbs up. Would you please, please, please leave in the comments any other tips you have for me and anyone else watching this about what you should do when someone has suffered a miscarriage. And make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more of my tips and tricks, hear my journey and my story. Head over to my channel. I've got lots of videos about the things that I'm going through and that I've been through. So I hope that these videos are helpful for you, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.